Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 231, Yahiko dies. Nagato goes berserk. What's the situation now? Shin glanced over at White Zetsu, calmly asking about the status. He knew Danzo and Hanzo had already moved, but he wasn't sure exactly how far things had gone. Shin-sama, Hanzo already tricked Yahiko and Nagato into a trap under the guise of cooperation. He's about to make his move. White Zetsu answered swiftly, clearly anxious. Hanzo had suggested joining forces to negotiate peace with the land of fire, wind, and earth. Given the ongoing Third Great Ninja War, his reason seemed believable enough. Especially with the land of rain caught in the middle. Yahiko had naively thought Hanzo truly acknowledged their efforts. Unsuspecting, he gladly went to the meeting without a shred of caution. Since it's come to this, let's go have a look. Shin figured Hanzo had probably already started. No one objected to Shin's suggestion, not White Zetsu, not Black Zetsu, and certainly not Obito Uchiha. Yet Obito was silently fuming. Ever since Shin arrived, everything revolved around him. Obito felt like little more than a bystander in his own plans. But what could he do? Without enough strength, all he could do was swallow his frustration and bide his time. Following White Zetsu's guidance, they quickly reached the location where Yahiko and Hanzo had agreed to meet. Their timing was perfect. Yahiko, Nagato, and Hanzo hadn't started fighting yet, but tensions were already dangerously high. Hanzo, you betrayed us. Yahiko clenched his teeth, glaring angrily at Hanzo. Hanzo's men had already captured Yahiko's comrades, the loyal members of the Akatsuki. To Yahiko, these weren't mere subordinates, they were his friends, his equals. You kids were far too naive. It's your own fault for trusting me so easily. Hanzo sneered contemptuously. For a brief moment, he wondered if he'd been overly cautious. How could such naive fools ever threaten his authority? Release my comrades immediately. Yahiko shouted, anger boiling over. He cursed himself for believing Hanzo's lies. Release them? It's not impossible. If you, the Akatsuki's leader, kill yourself right here, I'll let them all go. Hanzo casually tossed a kunai to Yahiko's feet, speaking coldly. Leader, save us. We don't want to die. The captured Akatsuki members immediately cried out, begging Yahiko to save their lives. Taking a deep breath, Yahiko picked up the kunai. If I die, will you truly spare them? Yahiko stared firmly into Hanzo's eyes. With you dead, the Akatsuki will naturally crumble. I'll have no further need to kill them, Hanzo answered indifferently. His main worry was the Akatsuki eventually overtaking his rule. If Yahiko died, there'd be nothing left to threaten him. Fine. I hope you're true to your word this time, Hanzo. Yahiko, don't. Nagato desperately lunged forward, grabbing Yahiko's hand to stop him from plunging the kunai into his chest. Nagato, Jiraiya-sensei said you'd bring change to this world. I believe you'll fulfill our dream. Yahiko smiled gently at Nagato, then decisively thrust himself forward, impaling his heart on the kunai. Nagato's eyes widened in shock. He caught Yahiko's collapsing body, sinking to his knees in despair. Watching from afar, Mei Terumi shook her head in disbelief. Not to disrespect the dead, but that Yahiko guy was way too naive. Did he really believe Hanzo would spare his friends just because he sacrificed himself? Shin shook his head. Yahiko might have been naive, but he was kind. In the original story, he had sacrificed himself to save Konan, his most important comrade. But Konan was with Shin now, so Hanzo had captured his other subordinates to threaten him. Yahiko was willing to sacrifice his life for his subordinates. He didn't see them as subordinates, but as true comrades. But sometimes, it was precisely the most compassionate people who suffered the cruelest fate. With Yahiko's death, Nagato sank into absolute despair. Hanzo stared coldly, his eyes flickering briefly before giving the ruthless order to kill all remaining Akatsuki members. Root out the weeds completely. Hanzo had learned this lesson long ago. Not only the captured members, even Nagato himself had to be killed. Hanzo, Danzo-sama instructed that we take the redhead's eyes. A ninja dressed distinctively from the others stepped forward, clearly from Danzo's root organization. On the surface, they came to assist. Their true goal was Nagato's Rinnegan. Since I've promised Danzo, I won't go back on my word, Hanzo replied calmly. I'll kill you all. I'll avenge Yahiko. Nagato screamed madly, consumed by grief and rage. Ignoring everything else, he unleashed the full power of his Rinnegan. Fire release, exploding flame formation. Hanzo smirked. He had planted explosive tags here beforehand. Boom! Explosive tags hidden earlier detonated violently, engulfing Nagato's legs in flames. His legs were severely burned and blasted apart. Arg! Shielding Yahiko's corpse, Nagato summoned a massive, grotesque creature. Mei shivered visibly at the sight. What the heck is that thing? Shin calmly explained, it's the demonic statue of the outer path, the empty husk of the Ten-Tails. It makes sense you've never seen it before. The Ten-Tails? Mei looked at Shin, puzzled. She'd only heard of tailed beasts numbered 1 through 9. We don't have time right now. I'll explain it later, Shin responded casually. Okay. Mei sighed, curiosity piqued but knowing she'd have to wait. The summoned statue roared violently, spewing out dragon-shaped chakra that absorbed the chakra of anyone it touched. Chakra itself originated from the god tree, and the statue was simply reclaiming that energy. It was essentially recycling. Hanzo saw death looming as the chakra dragons raced toward him. Witnessing other ninja collapsing lifeless, he promptly chose survival and vanished using body flicker technique. Only Hanzo, with his formidable strength, could flee safely. The remaining Aim and Root shinobi weren't so fortunate. Nagato slaughtered them all, vengeance burning in his eyes. Chapter 232, Almost Killing Nagato. After Hanzo escaped, Nagato collapsed, his chakra completely depleted from summoning the Geto statue. The summoning had even drained some of his life force. He was emaciated, looking frail and weak. That thing's strong, but it's not worth it to be reduced to this state, Mei Terumi whispered, looking at Nagato. The Geto statue had killed hundreds of ninja with a single attack, but the cost to Nagato had been immense. If you were driven to desperation, you'd understand, Shin said. Although, Shin privately thought Nagato's action unnecessary this time. If revenge was Nagato's goal, he didn't need to summon the Geto statue. A Shinra Tensei would have been enough to deal with them. Nagato was fortunate to be an Uzumaki, anyone else would have been sucked dry. Seems like it's our turn to step in, Shin said, looking at Obito. Will this make Nagato suspicious? Obito hesitated. Suspicious? Of what? Even if he is, I'll dispel his doubts. Shin walked out of their hiding spot. Konan and Mei Terumi followed him. Obito had no choice but to follow. Let's go too, White Zetsu said, then followed them without waiting for Black Zetsu's response. Nagato, sensing a presence behind him, instinctively threw a kunai in their direction, assuming it was Hanzo returning. The last person who dared throw something at me is already dead and buried, Shin remarked with a casual air. Uzumaki Shin. Nagato turned and glared at Shin, his grip tightening around another kunai. He hadn't expected it to be Shin. You? Were you here the whole time? Nagato asked with barely suppressed rage. Shin's sudden appearance right after Yahiko's death felt too convenient. He wasn't wrong. Hanzo was the one who killed Yahiko, but Obito was the one who manipulated Hanzo, and Shin was the one who came up with the plan. But even if Shin hadn't come up with the plan, Yahiko would still have died, according to the original story. Yes, I was here before Yahiko died. Shin didn't deny it. Obito, who had just emerged from the shadows, was startled. Why would Shin admit it? Nagato was already suspicious, this would only make things worse. Did you have something to do with Yahiko's death? Nagato snarled, murder flickering in his eyes as the ghetto statue behind him trembled slightly. Excuse me? Shin suddenly appeared before Nagato, gripping him by the throat and lifting him off the ground effortlessly. Obito's lips twitched under his mask. This scene was familiar. It's like watching Obito being punished by Shin-sama, White Zetsu muttered. Obito glared at White Zetsu with his Mangekyo Sharingan. White Zetsu immediately shut up. He was scared of Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan. Nagato's face turned red as he struggled to breathe. He'd already been weakened from summoning the ghetto statue. Shin's grip was choking him. Black Zetsu was worried Shin might accidentally kill him. Seeing Nagato's eyes roll back, Shin realized he was about to die, so he dropped him. Almost crushed you by accident, Shin said insincerely. If I wanted you dead, would I have needed to team up with someone like Hanzo? Shin scoffed, unleashing his chakra slightly. The overwhelming pressure almost made Nagato faint again. Even the towering ghetto statue seemed to tremble in resonance with Shin's chakra. Although it seemed like an inanimate object, it was actually alive. Shin had fused the chakra of the nine-tailed beasts into the ten-tails chakra and then fused it with his own chakra. So his chakra could resonate with the ghetto statue. Nagato was finally able to breathe after Shin withdrew his chakra. Obito and Zetsu also sighed in relief. Konan and Mei Terumi weren't affected. Shin had deliberately protected them. Nagato looked at Shin, now believing him. With Shin's power, there was no need for him to collude with Hanzo. But he was still furious. Why hadn't Shin saved Yahiko? With his strength, it should have been easy. Are you blaming me for not saving Yahiko? Shin could read Nagato's thoughts just from his expression. You had the power to save him, why didn't you? Nagato's voice trembled, heavy with bitterness. And why should I? What's my relationship with any of you? Shin replied indifferently. Shin then looked at Obito. It was Obito's turn now. He had set the stage. Now it was up to Obito to brainwash Nagato. Nagato was currently filled with anger and hatred. It shouldn't be difficult for Obito to manipulate him. Obito knew it was time for him to step up. He had already prepared his speech. Chapter 233, Shin officially joins Akatsuki. Obito took Nagato aside for a private conversation. Afterwards, Nagato was a changed person. He no longer believed in achieving peace through non-violence, he now thought overwhelming force was the only way. Obito is quite the manipulator, Shin said with a chuckle. I'm cooperating with you to fulfill Yahiko's dream, Nagato said upon returning. He had been persuaded by Obito not because of Obito's words, but because he wanted to fulfill Yahiko's wish and achieve world peace. Don't worry, we share the same goal. I also want world peace, Obito said with a smile. Shin glanced at Obito. Wasn't Obito's goal to create a world with Rin no Era in it? Madara Uchiha and Nagato wanted world peace, but Obito's motivation was different. We need strong allies to achieve our goal. I propose we rebuild the Akatsuki, Obito said. The current Akatsuki had effectively been wiped out, leaving only Nagato alive. Everyone else had died at Hanzo's hands. But we don't need a bunch of weaklings. Only S-rank Missing Nin are qualified to join. The reason they needed Missing Nin was simple, only Missing Nin would truly help them achieve their plan. Nagato looked at Obito and didn't object. He agreed with Obito's proposal. Obito had already told him the plan: gather the nine-tailed beasts, revive the ten-tails with the demonic statue of the outer path, and then use the ten-tails' power to intimidate the hidden villages and prevent them from starting wars. He hadn't completely lied to Nagato. He had just omitted some details. Zetsu, you'll be in charge of intelligence gathering and finding powerful Missing Nin. Obito said to Zetsu. Nagato, you'll lead the Akatsuki. I won't interfere. My identity isn't suitable for the spotlight. Obito was playing the role of Madara Uchiha, he couldn't reveal himself. Nagato would be the public face of the Akatsuki, while he would be the mastermind behind the scenes. Shin, what are your plans? Obito hadn't forgotten about Shin, a true wild card. I'll join the Akatsuki. In name only, Shin said after a moment of thought. He joined so he could participate in their missions and alleviate his boredom. Ding! Master, you have a new mission. Please view. Mission: join the Akatsuki. Reward: 1 advanced replication card, completed. Congratulations, Master. You have received 1 advanced replication card. Shin was speechless. The mission was already complete. It was the easiest mission he'd ever received. Don't bother me unless it's important, Shin said to Nagato and Obito, then left with Konan and Mei Terumi. He was in a good mood after receiving a free advanced replication card. Obito watched him leave, then turned to Nagato. He still had things to discuss, especially now that Shin was gone. Shin knew they would talk, but he wasn't interested in their conversation. He was confident that neither Nagato nor Obito would dare target him, at least not yet. Perhaps in the future, they might grow bolder, but even if they did, Shin could easily crush them. Let's go home, Shin said to Konan and Mei Terumi. Okay, Shin and Konan agreed readily, but Mei Terumi had other ideas. We just got out. Can't we stay a bit longer? It's so boring back in the land of whirlpools. Mei pleaded. Although the land of whirlpools was peaceful, it was too quiet, even a little boring. Shin glanced at Mei Terumi and ignored her, then used Yamatsu Hirasaka to take them back. You're actually training? Did the sun rise from the west today? Shin was surprised to see Kushina, Makoto, and Tsunade training. Shin, if you keep saying that, I won't let you into my room tonight, Kushina said, pouting. Shin chuckled. If he wanted to visit her room, she couldn't stop him. Kushina, why are you suddenly so diligent? She hadn't been this dedicated to training before. Let me answer that. After you left, Kushina challenged Makoto to a spar and lost, Tsunade explained. Tsunade. We agreed not to talk about that. What's there to be embarrassed about? It's not shameful to lose to Makoto. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan is powerful. Even Tsunade wasn't confident she could defeat Makoto. The Susanu's offensive and defensive capabilities were too much for her to handle. Shin, I want to learn wood release. Teach me. Don't even think about it, Kushina. I haven't even learned it yet, Tsunade said. She'd been working hard on wood release, but she hadn't succeeded. Awakening a Kekkei Genkai depends on luck and talent. You couldn't learn it because you're not talented enough. If it were me, I would definitely be able to do it, Kushina said confidently. Kushina, do you want to fight? Tsunade glared at her. How dare she insult her talent? Besides Shin, whose talent was monstrous, no one had the right to say she wasn't talented. Bring it on. I'm not afraid of you. Shin looked at them. Should he stop them? He decided not to. They wouldn't actually fight. And even if they did, they would hold back. It was just sparring. It might even help them improve. Chapter 234, I also want to sign the life contract. Though Kushina and Tsunade had argued, they didn't end up fighting. Makoto intervened, and they weren't serious about fighting anyway. You seemed disappointed. Did you want to see us fight? Tsunade asked Shin. No, of course not, Shin shook his head innocently, though he secretly had been hoping to watch a good show. Mei Terumi, standing behind Shin, poked him. What? Shin turned around, looking at her. That demonic statue, what is it? It looked scary. Mei was referring to the creature Nagato had summoned. She didn't know what it was, but Shin and Konan seemed familiar with it. She was curious. It's the husk of the Ten-Tails. Shin explained casually. What's the Ten-Tails? Mei Terumi was even more confused. She had never heard of the Ten-Tails. Weren't there only 9-tailed beasts? The Ten-Tails is the god tree, the origin of chakra. There was no chakra 1,000 years ago. It was the god tree that created chakra. This is a long story. Ask Conan, she'll explain it to you. He pushed May off on Conan, who patiently explained everything to her, though it took several hours. Conan gave Shin a resentful look. Talking for so long was tiring. See, May? Because of your endless questions, you tired poor Conan out. Shin said, patting Conan's hair and blaming May. May's jaw dropped slightly, shocked by Shin's audacity. Did he just blame her for his laziness? Am I wrong? Didn't you ask all those questions? Yes, you're right. May Terumi pouted. Shin, stop bullying May. I can't watch this anymore, Tsunade said. Then maybe I'll just bully you instead, Tsunade. Shin asked Tsunade with a smirk. Stop slacking off and teach me what release. Kushina dragged Shin away. Kushina, aren't we supposed to be best friends? You're so eager to defeat me, you're hurting my feelings. Makoto sighed dramatically. Really? You don't look hurt at all. Kushina looked at Makoto's cheerful smile. She didn't seem upset at all, more like she was enjoying it. I also want to learn wood release, Shin and Conan said, eager to learn. Though she wasn't sure if she could master it, she wanted to try. Me too. May Terumi looked at Shin with sparkling eyes. Who wouldn't want to learn the legendary wood release? Though she already had lava release and boil release, she was greedy. She wanted wood release as well. Shin looked at them and decided to teach them all. One student was the same as 4, it didn't make a difference. If you want to learn wood release, that's fine, but May, it's probably impossible for you to learn it, Shin said, looking at May. May looked down, hurt. Was it because she wasn't as close to him as Kushina, Makoto, Tsunade, and Conan? Don't take it personally. It's not because I'm discriminating against you. We've spent quite some time together. I consider you one of us. Then why? May was still feeling a bit excluded. Because you don't have a sage body. Shin said, spreading his hands. Of course, not having a sage body doesn't mean you can't learn wood release. But even if you do learn it, its power will be limited, it won't be as powerful as the real wood release. Sage body? Do I have a sage body? Conan looked at Shin, confused. You didn't before, but you do now. After Shin signed the life contract with Conan, her body, under the influence of Shin's power, was slowly transforming into a sage body. Perhaps one day, it would even become a perfect sage body. How? Can I also have a sage body? May asked hopefully. You can, but it depends on whether you're willing, Shin looked at May. Sign the life contract with me, and your body will slowly transform into a sage body. You'll also gain eternal youth and immortality. Are you tricking me? May looked at Shin skeptically. Eternal youth and immortality? That sounded too good to be true. Do you think I have nothing better to do than trick you? I'm not that bored. Then. I also want to sign the life contract, May said seriously. Chapter 235, Getting Out of Dodge. May Terumi looked at Shin hopefully. The benefits of signing the life contract were too tempting to resist. I'm not opposed to signing the contract with you, but I haven't told you about the downsides yet. Don't you want to hear them? Shin wasn't going to deceive May. He wanted to explain the pros and cons clearly. First, once you sign the contract, your life will be in my hands. And if I die, you might die with me. This was equivalent to entrusting your life to someone else. No one would agree to this without absolute trust. Huh, that's it? I agree. May Terumi breathed a sigh of relief. She had been worried about the downsides, judging by Shin's serious expression. She hadn't expected it to be so simple. Shin stared at her in disbelief. She agreed too easily. This was her life she was handing over. So I was right. May does have a thing for Shin, Tsunade whispered to Kushina, Makoto, and Conan. Makoto and Conan nodded in agreement. No one would so readily entrust their life to someone they didn't have strong feelings for. Kushina puffed out her chest with pride, as expected of her man, he was so popular. Tsunade, Konan, and Makoto exchanged glances. Was Kushina's brain broken? Why was she proud? She had another love rival, and she was proud? They didn't understand her thought process. Mei, are you sure about this? Shin asked. I've already thought it over. What's there to consider? You're being so wishy-washy. Mei Terumi muttered. Shin's face darkened. He'd been trying to be considerate, explaining the risks, and she was calling him wishy-washy? He placed a hand on Mei's forehead, his white Six Paths cloak appearing, 12 truth-seeking orbs hovering behind him. He looked awesome. Yin-Yang release, life contract. Shin channeled his chakra into Mei Terumi, leaving a faint, disappearing mark. He could now feel a special connection between them. Done. That was it? Are you sure you're not tricking me? Mei Terumi said. Thwack. Sense it yourself, and you'll know if I'm tricking you, Shin said, flicking her forehead. You bully. I'll get you back one day. Mei Terumi muttered, rubbing her forehead. Don't bother whispering. I can hear you even if you think it. Mei Terumi stuck out her tongue at him, then focused on sensing the changes within her body. Her eyes widened in surprise. Her chakra reserves had increased more than tenfold. I'm not sure if this counts as a sage body, but it feels exactly the same, Shin said. Mei's chakra and life force were now indistinguishable from those of someone with a sage body. Does this mean I can learn wood release now? Mei Terumi asked excitedly. Don't get ahead of yourself. I don't think you can learn wood release, Shin's words dampened her enthusiasm. If wood release was that easy to learn, every senju would have it. Shin then spent the next week trying to teach them wood release. He was starting to regret his decision. Teaching 5 students was far more difficult than teaching 1. And what he considered simple, they found incredibly challenging. I'm starting to lose hope. Maybe I should get out of here for a while. Shin was getting a headache from all their questions. He decided to leave the land of whirlpools for a bit. He left behind his wood release training notes and a letter, then used Yamatsu Hirasaka to escape. By the time Kushina and the others discovered his desertion, he was already gone. Makoto, what did that jerk write in his letter? Kushina demanded. He said he's going out for a while to clear his head. He'll be back soon, Makoto said, handing Kushina the letter. I think Shin and I just didn't want to teach us and ran away, Konan said. She'd seen through Shin's excuse. Shin's departure didn't stop them from practicing wood release. He had left detailed notes on his training methods. If they couldn't learn it now, it meant they truly lacked the talent. Talent was essential, just like with the Flying Thunder God technique. No matter how hard they tried, Kushina, Makoto, and Tsunade couldn't learn it. Only Konan succeeded. It wasn't that they were less talented than Konan, their talents simply lay elsewhere. Shin, after leaving the land of whirlpools, had no particular destination in mind. He inquired about the Third Shinobi World War and learned it was mostly over. The villages had withdrawn their main forces, but small skirmishes continued. I'll go to Konoha. Shin decided to visit Konoha. He heard they were electing a new Hokage. And he wanted to see the spectacle. If things went according to plan, Minato Namikaze would be the 4th Hokage, also the shortest-lived Hokage. Minato was a tragic figure, dying at his peak, killed indirectly by his own student, Obito. It took Shin less than half a day to reach Konoha, which was filled with cheerful chatter. Perfect timing. He learned that today was the day they'd choose the 4th Hokage. That old man Hiruzen is finally stepping down? I'm surprised. But even after stepping down, Hiruzen would still hold considerable influence in Konoha. As Minato's teacher's teacher, Minato wouldn't disobey him. Chapter 236, The 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Shin walked through Konoha's streets. He was here to watch the show. Who are you voting for? Orochimaru-sama, of course. You? I'm voting for Jiraiya-sama's student, the Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze. He saved my life on the battlefield. The Yellow Flash is a good choice, but I admire Orochimaru-sama more. Shin overheard two shinobi talking as they passed. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. People are actually voting for Orochimaru? Are they blind? Shin muttered to himself. Orochimaru during the Second Shinobi World War was still a decent person, but now he wasn't suitable to be Hokage at all. It seems Orochimaru will become Minato's stepping stone. How tragic. Shin chuckled and followed the two shinobi. He wanted to see the spectacle. Shin? A surprised voice called out to him. Shin turned around. Yo, it's you three. Didn't expect to see you here. The person who called out to him was Shikaku Nara, accompanied by Choza Akimichi and Inoichi Yamanaka, the Inoshikacho trio. You still recognize me after all these years? Impressive. Shin said with a smile. Your red hair is easy to recognize. And you haven't changed much, Choza Akimichi said. There weren't many redheads in Konoha, besides Choza himself. Red hair was practically the Uzumaki clan's trademark. And Shin was wearing the Uzumaki clan symbol. Though he'd grown older, his appearance hadn't changed drastically. They'd recognized him easily. Shin, why are you in Konoha? Shikaku Nara asked cautiously. He'd heard Shin wasn't on good terms with Konoha. I heard you were choosing a new Hokage, so I came to see the fun. You don't think I'm here to destroy Konoha, do you? Shin wasn't offended by Nara Shikaku's caution. It's best if you're not. We were classmates once. We don't want to be enemies, Inoichi Yamanaka said, relieved. Although they didn't know how strong Shin was, his reputation as the Reaper of the shinobi world preceded him. They'd been classmates, even friends, and they didn't want to be enemies with him. Shin joined them, and they headed towards the Hokage Tower, where the voting was taking place. Can all the villagers participate in the election? Shin asked Nara Shikaku. No, only Konoha shinobi can vote, Shikaku Nara replied. Although only shinobi can vote, the elected Hokage still needs to be recognized by the villagers. Nara Shikaku explained. So although the villagers couldn't vote, their opinions still mattered. Who are you voting for? Shin asked them. He guessed they would vote for Minato Namikaze. After all, they were classmates. The candidates are Orochimaru-sama, Minato, and Danzo-sama. We're voting for Minato, of course, Akimichi Choza said. They supported Minato not only because of their friendship but also because he was capable of becoming Hokage. They were happy to support him. Only those three? Jiraiya isn't running? Shin was surprised. Jiraiya was also qualified to be Hokage. Jiraiya-sama was a candidate, but he's not interested in the position, so he withdrew, Inoichi Yamanaka explained. They soon arrived at the Hokage Tower. There were a lot of people there, not just Konoha shinobi, but also villagers who came to watch. Looks like I'm not the only one who likes a good show. He came all the way to Konoha just for this? Shikaku Nara thought to himself. Shin's presence in Konoha was bound to cause a stir. He was considered a dangerous individual. Hiruzen Sarutobi oversaw the voting process, which was surprisingly quick. Within an hour, it was over. The elders, Koharu Utatane and Hamura Mitokado, tallied the votes. Orochimaru, 1,253 votes. Danzo, 562 votes. Minato Namikaze, 5,796 votes. Though I knew Minato would win, I didn't expect it to be a landslide. Danzo's numbers are pathetic. Shin glanced at Danzo, who had only received a little over 500 votes, most likely from root members. Congratulations, Minato, Inoichi Yamanaka said with a smile. They were all pleased with the result. Minato Namikaze will be the next Hokage. Any objections? Hiruzen Sarutobi asked, though he was clearly satisfied with the outcome. Yellow Flash. Yellow Flash. Cheers erupted from the crowd, including the villagers. They were also happy with Minato becoming the fourth Hokage. This was understandable. Danzo was too shady and unpopular, and Hiruzen hadn't supported him either. Orochimaru was too creepy. Compared to them, Minato, with his warm smile, was far more popular. Chapter 237, Can you protect everything by dying? Minato Namikaze became the fourth Hokage, and the villagers cheered. Danzo's face was dark as he watched the scene. He had lost to Hiruzen Sarutobi before, and now he'd lost to Hiruzen's student? This was a disgrace. He didn't want to stay here and be humiliated, so he left. No one noticed his departure. All eyes were on Minato. Who would care about a loser like Danzo? Orochimaru, another contender for the Hokage position, also shook his head. So you chose Minato after all, sensei. Though Minato was popular, Orochimaru knew that without Hiruzen Sarutobi's influence, he wouldn't have won by such a landslide. The Hokage position. Orochimaru scoffed. He used to care about the Hokage position, but not anymore. If he'd become Hokage, it would have been nice, but he wasn't disappointed. He had other goals now. He also left. Hiruzen Sarutobi watched Orochimaru leave and sighed. He used to consider Orochimaru his most prized disciple, even grooming him to be the fourth Hokage. But now, he couldn't understand Orochimaru, who seemed to be walking a dark path. Hiruzen suspected something, but he had no proof yet. He hoped his suspicions were wrong. Shin also watched Orochimaru leave, sensing a hint of loneliness in his retreating figure. The Hokage inauguration ceremony began. Hiruzen Sarutobi officially stepped down, and Minato Namikaze became the fourth Hokage. As a former classmate, I should congratulate him. Shin walked towards Minato, immediately drawing everyone's attention. Shin? Minato looked at him, surprised. Minato, congratulations on becoming the fourth Hokage. You finally achieved your dream, Shin said with a smile. Hiruzen Sarutobi's face darkened. What was Uzumaki Shin doing in Konoha? Was he planning something? Shin didn't know what Hiruzen was thinking. If he did, he would have laughed. If he wanted to harm Konoha, a single Shinra Tensei would be enough to level the entire village. Thank you for your congratulations. But you're not here just for that, are you? Minato looked at Shin warily. Why is everyone so wary of me? I'm not a bad guy. And I have no interest in Konoha, Shin said, though he wasn't exactly a good person either. With his terrifying strength, it was natural for them to be cautious. And Minato didn't have a good impression of Shin. The reason was that during the Third Shinobi World War, Shin had Konan train on the battlefield, and she killed many Konoha shinobi. Minato hadn't forgotten that. Since I'm not welcome, I'll be going. Shin turned to leave, sensing Minato's hostility. Uzumaki Shin's presence in Konoha. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, Hiruzen said worriedly. Sandame, I will protect Konoha. Even if it's Uzumaki Shin. I will defend this village with my life. Minato said. Whoosh! A kunai flew past Minato's cheek, leaving a thin trail of blood. Can you protect everything by dying? And I'm not here to destroy Konoha. Don't make me sound like some kind of villain. Shin hadn't gone far. Although Hiruzen and Minato's voices weren't loud, he could still hear them. Their words had annoyed him, they'd made him sound like a villain. He attacked the Hokage? The surrounding shinobi, after a moment of stunned silence, moved to apprehend Shin. Don't attack! Hiruzen yelled. He didn't want to provoke Shin. Konoha couldn't afford the consequences. Though he believed Konoha could defeat Shin with their combined strength, this was Konoha. If a battle occurred here, even if they won, the village would be destroyed. Though he'd stepped down as Hokage, his orders still held weight. A wise choice. Shin glanced at the shinobi who had stopped, then left. Some of the Konoha shinobi felt humiliated. Who was this guy? How dare he injure their new Hokage and act arrogant? Many had forgotten about Shin, and the younger generation didn't even know him. "Minato, are you alright?" Hiruzen asked Minato. "Thank you for your concern, Sandaime-sama. I'm fine." "He probably didn't intend to kill me," Minato said with a wry smile. If Shin had wanted him dead, the kunai wouldn't have just grazed his cheek, it would have pierced his skull. "He's stronger than I imagined." Minato looked at the Hokage tower, which had been pierced by the kunai. It had been so fast he hadn't even reacted. If Shin had wanted to kill him, a single kunai would have been enough. Hiruzen Sarutobi remained silent. He didn't know the extent of Shin's power, he could only guess. Shin is so different from how he was in the academy. "He's changed so much," Choza Akimichi remarked. "Perhaps this is his true self. He might have been low-key in the academy, but he was never a pushover," Shikaku Nara said. He had seen through Shin's facade back in the academy. The power to threaten an entire village alone. "I wonder when I'll be able to achieve that," Inoichi Yamanaka said enviously, watching Shin leave. Shikaku Nara and Choza Akimichi looked at him. If he wanted that kind of power, he could just dream about it. They thought Yamanaka Inoichi was daydreaming. Well, Yamanaka Inoichi also knew he was daydreaming. He knew his own limits. Chapter 238, Orochimaru's Excitement. Shin was strolling through Konoha's food street. He hadn't left the village yet. He was planning to stay for a few days, he had nowhere else to go. He didn't care what Hiruzen Sarutobi, Minato Namikaze, or the Konoha higher-ups thought. He was strong enough to do as he pleased. He only cared about his own enjoyment, not their worries. Orochimaru. Shin saw Orochimaru sitting in a tavern and decided to join him. Orochimaru noticed Shin and looked at him with interest. "Orochimaru, are you drinking here all alone, feeling dejected?" "Shin, what makes you think I'm feeling dejected?" Orochimaru asked with a smile. "You lost the Hokage election to Minato Namikaze. Aren't you upset?" Shin looked at Orochimaru, trying to see his reaction. But to Shin's disappointment, Orochimaru's expression didn't change. Perhaps he really didn't care about the Hokage position. The Hokage position is just a burden. My ambitions lie elsewhere. Orochimaru wasn't interested in the Hokage title. His goal was immortality. If he became Hokage, he wouldn't have time to research it. "Aren't you afraid of being endangered here in Konoha, Shin?" Orochimaru asked. "Afraid? Of what?" Orochimaru shook his head. Even if they gathered all of Konoha's forces, they might not be able to defeat Shin. And even if they could, the price would be too high. Hiruzen wouldn't make such a foolish decision. As for the new Hokage, Minato Namikaze, Orochimaru knew how much power he actually had. Although Minato was the Hokage, the real power was still in Hiruzen's hands. Minato's authority was even less than that of the two elders and Danzo. "If you hadn't left Konoha, you might be the Hokage now," Orochimaru said suddenly. "Ha ha." Shin chuckled. "Orochimaru, that's impossible. Even if I hadn't left, no one would elect me as Hokage." He was from the land of whirlpools, an outsider. Hiruzen would never allow him to become Hokage. That was why he had tried to suppress Shin. Why did Hiruzen Sarutobi step down? He had no choice. The villagers were blaming him. Orochimaru explained. It wasn't a secret. Konoha had suffered heavy losses in the Third Shinobi World War, and the grieving villagers had blamed Hiruzen. Danzo had also manipulated things behind the scenes, fueling their anger. I see. So he was forced to step down. Shin realized Minato had been set up. Although he had become Hokage, Konoha was currently a mess. The war had devastated the village. Minato would have his hands full dealing with the aftermath. "Shin, are you interested in immortality?" Orochimaru asked, a glint in his eyes. He was planning something. He wanted to collaborate with Shin and research immortality together. Immortality? That's easy, Shin said casually. Orochimaru froze, then he became excited. Easy? Did Shin have a way to achieve it? Shin, you said it's easy. Do you have a method? Orochimaru tried to appear calm, but his excitement was evident. Orochimaru, some things are easy for some people, but impossible for others. Shin shook his head. Though he admired Orochimaru's talent, achieving true immortality was difficult. Orochimaru might not be able to do it. His living corpse reincarnation technique wouldn't grant him eternal life, he would eventually destroy himself. Orochimaru probably hadn't developed the living corpse reincarnation yet at this point in time. Can you tell me the method? I'm prepared to offer you all my jutsu in exchange. Orochimaru said. He would give up everything for immortality. I'm not interested in your jutsu. Shin wasn't interested in Orochimaru's techniques. He could already use Edo Tensei, which Orochimaru hadn't even learned yet. And he didn't care about Orochimaru's other jutsu. But I can tell you the method. Orochimaru's hopes were rekindled. Reach the level of the Sage of Six Paths and you'll achieve immortality. You'll be able to live for thousands of years, at least. Shin knew Orochimaru couldn't reach that level, so he didn't mind revealing it. The Sage of Six Paths? But he died eventually. Orochimaru, how do you know the Sage of Six Paths is really dead? Orochimaru was starting to believe Shin. But reaching the level of the Sage of Six Paths? That was incredibly difficult. The Sage of Six Paths was said to be a god who could create and destroy worlds. Even if the legends were exaggerated, he was definitely stronger than Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Orochimaru wanted to ask more, but seeing Shin's expression, he knew it was pointless. Was the Sage of Six Paths still alive? If he was, where was he? Orochimaru wanted to meet this legendary figure. You must have a reason for coming to Konoha, Shin. Orochimaru put aside his thoughts on immortality for now. He had been excited at first, but he didn't think it was a realistic goal. Reaching the level of the Sage of Six Paths was too difficult, though he could try. Chapter 239, Danzo pays me to kill Minato? After chatting for a while, Orochimaru left, while Shin stayed behind to continue drinking. News of their meeting reached Hiruzen Sarutobi and Minato Namikaze. In the Hokage's office. Minato was busy with paperwork while Hiruzen supervised him. But after hearing about Shin and Orochimaru's meeting, Hiruzen couldn't focus anymore. Have they been in contact before? Hiruzen asked with worry. Sandaime-sama, there's something I'm not sure I should tell you, Minato said hesitantly. What is it? Speak freely, Minato. Hiruzen had a bad feeling about this, judging by Minato's hesitant expression. There have been disappearances in the village recently. I was investigating them, and it seems they're connected to Orochimaru-senpai. Minato said seriously. He had been investigating this before the Hokage selection. If he hadn't become Hokage, he'd still be on the case. Is that true, Minato? Hiruzen asked after a long silence. He already knew it was likely true. He knew Minato wouldn't make such accusations without reason. Yes, though I don't have concrete proof yet. The evidence pointed to Orochimaru, but Minato hadn't been able to confirm it. Leave this to me, Minato. If it's truly Orochimaru, I won't tolerate it, even if he's my student. Hiruzen's expression turned serious. Thank you, Sandaime-sama. Minato trusted Hiruzen to handle this fairly. Orochimaru didn't know he was being investigated yet. But secrets rarely stayed hidden. Once discovered, he'd have two choices, death or defection. Knowing Orochimaru, the choice was obvious. Shin left the tavern and was immediately approached by a group of masked shinobi. They looked like Umbu, but their unique chakra signatures revealed they were root agents. Shin-sama, Danzo-sama requests your presence. Danzo had sent them to invite Shin. He'd specifically ordered them to be respectful. He was clearly afraid of Shin, having been on the receiving end of Shin's power multiple times. He both hated and feared Shin, but fear was the dominant emotion. Danzo invited me? Shin chuckled. Lead the way. Shin decided to humor Danzo. He was curious about Danzo's motives. He'd expected Danzo to avoid him. The root shinobi led the way, and Shin followed them to the root base. This was Shin's first time here. So it's underground, as expected. Root's base was hidden beneath an abandoned training ground in Konoha. Even Hiruzen Sarutobi might not know its location. The base wasn't dark, it was well lit and surprisingly well decorated. Danzo clearly took pride in his lair. Shin arrived at the deepest part of the base and finally saw Danzo, whose right eye and arm were bandaged. Sensing Hashirama's cells and the Sharingan's chakra, Shin knew Danzo had undergone the transplant. The reason Danzo could transplant Hashirama's cells and survive was because of the Sharingan's suppression. The two powers were balanced. Of course, Danzo also transplanted the Sharingan because he coveted the Uchiha clan's power, especially the Mangekyo Sharingan. Although he hated the Uchiha clan, he still wanted their Sharingan. Danzo, aren't you afraid I'll kill you? Shin asked, a playful glint in his eyes. Do you really think Izanagi can save you from me? Danzo's face paled. His secret had been exposed. He had only dared to meet with Shin because of Izanagi, his trump card. Uzumaki Shin, I don't want to be your enemy. I want to collaborate with you, Danzo said, regaining his composure. Collaborate? You? What makes you think you're worthy? Shin looked at him with disdain. Danzo was furious, but he held back his anger. He knew he wasn't a match for Shin. Hear me out first. I'm listening. Shin wanted to know Danzo's purpose anyway. 3 billion Ryo, I'll pay you 3 billion Ryo to kill Minato Namikaze. Danzo said, gritting his teeth. 3 billion Ryo was a huge sum enough to bankrupt a major clan. Kill Minato Namikaze? You want to become Hokage, don't you? Yes. Danzo didn't bother hiding his ambition. Anyone could see he wanted to be Hokage. Danzo, you're delusional. Shin scoffed. Did Danzo really think that Minato's death would pave the way for him to become Hokage? Danzo's personality wasn't suited for the Hokage position. And Hiruzen, who knew Danzo well, would never let him become Hokage. Even the elders, Koharu and Hamura, wouldn't support him. Chapter 240, Orochimaru's Defection. Danzo's face darkened. He had just been mocked by Shin. Even if Minato Namikaze dies, you still won't become Hokage. Shin said, ignoring Danzo's expression. Wasn't that what happened in the original story? After Minato died, Hiruzen became Hokage again. Danzo still couldn't become Hokage. And you said you'll pay 3 billion Ryo. Do you even have that much money, Danzo? 3 billion Ryo was a huge sum. Root was already expensive to maintain, and it relied on Hiruzen's funding. Where would Danzo get that kind of money? As long as I become Hokage, I'll be able to pay. If he became Hokage, he could squeeze out the money. Then it seems there's no deal. Shin turned to leave. Danzo couldn't become Hokage, so he couldn't pay. And even if Danzo could pay, Shin wouldn't necessarily help him. Shin wasn't short on money. Money was useless to him. With his strength, he could get as much money as he wanted. Danzo watched him leave, his face grim. I thought it was something important, but it turned out to be this. Shin said after leaving the root base. He was disappointed. He decided to stay in Konoha for a few days before returning to the land of whirlpools. 2 days later, something major happened in Konoha. Hiruzen Sarutobi led the Umbu to arrest Orochimaru. Hiruzen had found concrete evidence that the missing villagers were indeed related to Orochimaru. And after tracking him down, they found the base where Orochimaru was conducting his experiments. Hiruzen's eyes were filled with rage as he looked at the villagers and children who had been captured and experimented on. Sensei, you found me. Orochimaru looked at Hiruzen and the Umbu, his expression calm. He had expected this. Orochimaru, I can't believe you did this. You harmed the villagers. Hiruzen was furious. His most prized student had fallen so far. He wanted to give Orochimaru a chance to redeem himself, but there was no going back. Human experimentation was a taboo. Orochimaru was beyond redemption. Since you found me, there's nothing left to say. Are you going to kill your own student, sensei? Orochimaru looked at Hiruzen. Although he appeared unconcerned, he was actually wary of Hiruzen. He had to admit he wasn't a match for his teacher. Hiruzen wasn't the old man he would become in the future. He was still at his peak. Even 2 Orochimarus wouldn't be enough to defeat him. Even if it's you, I have to stop you. Hiruzen summoned Enma. He was serious. Hiruzen, what's going on? Enma asked, sensing the tension. Orochimaru conducted forbidden experiments and harmed Konoha's villagers. He's a traitor now, Hiruzen said with a heavy heart. Enma looked at Orochimaru seriously. Don't hold back, Hiruzen. If he escapes, there will be trouble. Don't let your feelings for him cloud your judgment. Hiruzen nodded and had Enma transform into his staff. Sensei, do you think I haven't prepared for this? Orochimaru said with a sinister smile. Orochimaru, if you surrender, I. Don't bother, sensei. Even if I surrender, Konoha won't let me off. Orochimaru knew that even if he survived, he would be imprisoned for life. Hidden Shadow Snake Hands. Orochimaru unleashed countless snakes towards Hiruzen. The Anbu were also blocked by the snakes. After blocking Hiruzen, Orochimaru didn't linger and escaped through a secret passage. Fire Style, Great Fireball Technique. After Orochimaru escaped, Hiruzen used fire release to eliminate the snakes. Animals were afraid of fire, especially snakes. Hiruzen's Great Fireball Technique incinerated a large number of snakes, and the rest fled. Pursue Orochimaru. And spread the word. Orochimaru is now an S-rank missing nin. Hiruzen ordered the Anbu. After everyone left, Enma transformed back into his monkey form and asked Hiruzen, did you deliberately let Orochimaru escape? As Hiruzen's partner, Enma knew Hiruzen's strength. If Hiruzen had tried his best, Orochimaru wouldn't have been able to escape. Hiruzen was silent for a moment. He didn't deny it. If he had attacked with his full strength, he might not have been able to capture Orochimaru, but he wouldn't have let Orochimaru escape so easily. He's my student after all. Hiruzen said after a long silence. Humph, I knew he wasn't a good person. You'll regret letting him go. Enma returned to the summoning realm. He seemed to be disappointed in Hiruzen's soft-heartedness. Regret? Hiruzen sighed. He didn't regret it now. As for the future, he didn't know. The Anbu pursued Orochimaru, but they couldn't catch him. Instead, several of them were killed by Orochimaru. Now that he was a missing nin, Orochimaru didn't hesitate to kill Konoha shinobi. Orochimaru successfully defected. By the time Minato and Jiraiya received the news, it was already too late. Old man, what happened? Why did Orochimaru defect? Jiraiya asked Hiruzen angrily. Although he didn't approve of some of Orochimaru's actions, they were still close friends. At least Jiraiya thought so. Orochimaru conducted forbidden experiments and harmed Konoha's villagers, Hiruzen said with a dark expression. That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.